Well, that's excellent. Things are breaking down before we've even started the show tonight. Wonderful. Well, there's the countdown finishing off wonderfully. And, You're watching Force... Oh, he can't even complete that either. Force 13's live streaming service is about to begin, and here it is. So, that is one of the best starts we've ever had here on Force 13 Live, which I've no idea why that happened at all. And here we are. Welcome. If you've got any comments or questions for us tonight, please send them in regarding that gaffe that we've just witnessed there at the start of our live stream. We're covering Hurricane Lorenzo, which is headed towards the Azores tonight. Still, we believe a Category 3 storm with winds of 115 miles per hour and a pressure of around 950 millibars. A lot to say about this storm as it's happened in the last hour, in the last 24 hours, the last day, because of that peak intensity that it reached last night and what we may well witness in the next few days regarding this storm. Elsewhere, we are also tracking Typhoon Mitag, which is not far from Taiwan. A typhoon, Category 1 at this point. We also have Tropical Storm Narda, which is moving through Mexico, the western coast of Mexico at this point as well. And tropical storm warnings are out in force there. I can only apologise for something that wasn't my fault on that dreadful start to our proceedings. My name's Nathan Foy. I'm joined by the team consisting in this hour of David and Justin. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Good to be here, and to our viewers, we're streaming live onto Facebook, and quite a bit to cover, Nathan.
And there's a lot of interest in both of these systems at the moment. We have warnings out all over the place regarding the other two storms that aren't Lorenzo. For Narda, we have a tropical storm warning that is in effect along the coast there. That is for Acapulco to Cabo Corrientes. And in the Western Pacific, we have Signal 1 warnings in effect for the northernmost islands of the Philippines, the Batanes Islands, and the Babayaan group of islands. In Taiwan, there is also a typhoon warning in effect there for large parts of eastern and northern parts of the island, and heavy rain warnings there as well. Large amounts of rain could fall over the island very soon indeed. It's already started in some places. And for the southernmost Ryukyu Islands, there's also a gale advisory out there as well for Miyakojima and the Oyama Islands. Around the bottom of the screen, we're looking closer towards Force 13 HQ home base, and that is where Lorenzo could be tracking in the next few days. We've covered storms all around the world in the last 5-6 years of live events, and this one could be going on to affect the British Isles, which is where our location is here. Very rarely that we get to mention them, but that is the case for Lorenzo. Before it gets there, it will be going through the Azores, and I'm particularly concerned about those islands, David and Justin, because it could strike there with winds of 100 miles per hour or more still.
Yeah, and I think there was only like one Category 2 that ever made landfall in the Azores in recorded history, and that was back like in the 1920s.
Well, it is difficult for a storm to make landfall there. I'm pretty sure some other storms
they're pretty tiny.
Would have given hurricane force winds to the islands. But it's a stage 6 on the CDPS as well.
Ooh.
So that's quite interesting. Let's just reload this page here and go through all of the graphics panels on the left-hand side. That left panel there, the one that's it's the central panel really. Lorenzo should be appearing there any moment now. Winds of 115 miles per hour. We will get on to the Category 5 debacle at some point during this hour. Pressure of 950 millibars. Lorenzo apparently won't appear on that screen, and neither will Narda, which has winds of 40 miles per hour and a pressure of 1001 millibars. I can tell you that it doesn't look very good if we ever get to see it. This is some imagery of Mitag, which we do have imagery of. The information has updated a little bit since that panel at the bottom there. It's now 80 miles per hour we're putting it at, and a pressure of 980 millibars. You can see a bit closer there how it's likely to strike Taiwan. Whether it makes landfall there still remains to be seen. It looks like it's going to be close. Typhoon winds could happen along the coast there. That is the JTWC forecast. I appreciate it's a little bit zoomed out there, but it does take the storm just east of Taiwan, and I think just about clips the coast of China as a Category 1. I think it remains a Category 1 all the way through according to the forecast there. Yes, and then weakens as it moves through the Korean Peninsula, calling for a landfall in South Korea. This is the look on Lorenzo, the National Hurricane Center there, and their cone, which is growing ever larger as we reach that 5-day period. Likely to move through some of the Azores as a hurricane on Tuesday night into the early hours of Wednesday morning. Whether it does strike the Western Europe or not remains to be seen still, I must say, because models really trended further west earlier today because from what I've been seeing on earlier model runs, they were calling for... Well, let's rewind all the way back. About 2 days ago, the model consensus was that the storm was going to do a big loop round the northern Atlantic, miss Ireland, move off towards the north, curve northwest, westwards, and then slam into Greenland, actually. And then the models changed because they foresaw another low pressure system in the North Atlantic, extratropical low, which hemmed in the storm further east, and then it ended up just moving through the English Channel and possibly striking southern England or northern France. It would be much weaker by that point if it did do that. But the models have flipped back to scenario 1 today, and for it curving all the way around the North Atlantic again and not really affecting Ireland at all. As it stands, 34% is the highest percentage chance for tropical storm force winds in Western Ireland. It won't be tropical by that point. Let me just put you at ease on that at least. We're not seeing anything particularly strange, no matter what any news outlets might say, but it could still deliver tropical storm force winds, that's gale force, and it could be approaching hurricane force gusts as well if it does reach Ireland, the United Kingdom, or indeed northern France. So all of those are going by on the bottom of your screen as well for reference. Expected rainfall amounts as well are listed, generally maximums of 2 inches, but given how much rain this area has had recently, that could be quite significant in itself. Let's also move on to the Eastern Pacific, continuing this summary here at this hour. There is a look at Narda, which made landfall in Mexico not so long ago. Now moving inland, National Hurricane Center expects it will weaken to a depression very shortly. They are expecting re-intensification to tropical storm status in the Gulf of California, and then moving up that channel again, and then making landfall eventually, weakening once more. That's interesting to note. The bottom chart on that screen there only lists a 20% chance of tropical storm force winds, yet National Hurricane Center are predicting tropical storm on that. You would have thought by default that would mean 50% or more, but there we go. Here's some models for Lorenzo, and you can see just how on its own the National Hurricane Center official track is on the top panel there. You can just about make it out. It's the blackish line that takes it just west of Ireland, and now all the models have just completely blown off towards the west again in those latest model runs. That was as of 12Z. The 18Z model run should be out, so I'll go about getting those onto the screen as soon as possible. This was Mitag from earlier today as well, pretty much what the JTWC is saying. I'm not really looking anything beyond Category 2 on this storm. And these are the wide shots of the Atlantic, Eastern Pacific, Central Pacific, and the Western Pacific. And also, we're planning to do a Weather Beat episode on Wednesday night. Alright, now we've summarised all of that. I'll open the floor up to anyone who wants to have a discussion about any of these current storms. Go right ahead.
So, the whole Category 5 debacle about Lorenzo.
We're jumping straight onto that?
Actually, maybe not. Let's hold that off until later. But I really don't know what else to say
All right.
about any of these storms at the moment.
All right. Well, this is rather controversial. It sort of shouldn't be, really, because the storm isn't impacting any land areas. It's just interesting to see what's been going on recently. Let's just put this into chronological order, what actually happened yesterday. So, yesterday afternoon, recon planes flew into Lorenzo, which was intensifying at that point, and they found winds of 130 miles per hour. At that point, Force 13's SATID system was saying 142, and ADT, the Advanced Dvorak technique, was saying 140. Then later that evening, SATID values continued to rise up into the 150s, up to 155, even very briefly into Category 5 territory, 158 for a 10-minute period, and 157 for another different 10-minute period. Generally, you really need about 2 hours, ideally 3, of those raw 10-minute numbers to justify upping the status. National Hurricane Center went with the Category 5 status last night. For some reason, couldn't wait another 50 minutes for the full advisory, which they'd been waiting for already for 5 hours and 10 minutes, but went with the Category 5 status anyway. They based that on ADT estimates that were coming in of 7.0. I still can't really understand what actually happened there. They had to make some kind of special adjustment to make it 7.0 to account for something to do with the eye. I'm really not sure. Never seen that kind of thing before. And for that reason, it was a Cat 5. I don't understand that at all personally. And then this recon argument. So, that's a direct measurement, which is more direct than the satellite estimates, better than the satellite estimates. And this afternoon, just an hour or two ago, recon were in the storm again. I don't know what winds they've been getting, but they haven't been getting Category 3 winds. And ADT, again, has been saying 115 miles per hour. So it's at least 5 miles an hour lower than that on the recon. So, again, we are left with this remarkable scene of recon, satellite, which one is the more accurate, what's supposed to be recon. National Hurricane Center, the upward bias on that satellite, I'm pretty sure would have continued all the way through last night, and that's why we didn't go with the Category 5 status on this storm. We've kept it at 155 miles per hour. I think that is the correct decision. I'm sure there's a lot of debate that's going to happen about that, and that's probably what Weatherbeat's going to be about on Wednesday.
Yep.
But that is our reasoning as of now, until we can do some more analysis after the storm has cleared the scene.
Yeah, this whole debacle is pretty silly.
Well, it's silly if people are getting their emotions out of control over it. It's a storm that stayed out to sea.
Well, alright.
But it is very important that everyone gets this right. If the National Hurricane Center are really telling us that it was 160 miles per hour based on exaggerated satellite estimates, which in my opinion shouldn't have been 7.0 in the first place, then and based on only 10 minutes of Category 5 appearance, then alright, if they say that that is correct and that is the way we do things now, that's fine. But you won't catch the National Hurricane Center going back and upgrading all of those other storms that they'll have to apply that rule to. And that is what is a concern to me, personally. Otherwise, you'll have all kinds of nonsense. You'll have to upgrade Sandy to a Category 4, for instance, if that rule is going to stand. I'm not buying it. It's our opinion here, but officially the National Hurricane Center went with the Category 5, and that is what they said last night, and we've put forward why many of us here disagree. Not all of us, actually, within the team, but that is our official statement. And I don't think there's much else to say about that. You can send in your comments live on the air, though, and tag Force 13 all in text. We will get to your comments very shortly. But Orlando, is there something you wanted to say about that? Oh, no, there wasn't. Okay, he's just left. I think he's back. Orlando, you there?
Yeah.
Was there... yeah, go ahead.
In regards to, I'd say, Lorenzo, it's very true that it's that their argument there for it not being Category 5 is very valid. But I guess can't really do anything about it and have to wait till the officials do something post-analysis, see if it holds or what. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm not gonna bang on about it too much in the context of this live stream. The Azores are under threat from Hurricane Lorenzo. We also have Tropical Storm Narda and Typhoon Mitag, which we will be tracking as well tonight. We're guided by your questions more than anything, though, so you can send them in at any point. Let's see what we have then. We don't have too much going on just yet. But here is a question that came in. Will Lorenzo blow up in size, similar to Dorian once going post-tropical? It's definitely going to increase in size, yes, and before it turns post-tropical at that, it will be much larger when it's moving through the Azores. That's part of the reason why it's a stage 6 on the CDPS scale. It could potentially be catastrophic if the storm made landfall or moved extremely close to land, and the Azores are quite far apart, really, when you think of them as the island chain. Yet, more than one of those islands could get not Category 5, hurricane force winds over the next 3 or 4 days. That's something we've got to watch real close for. We could see not just the western islands, but the central islands both getting hurricane force winds in the midweek. So they should be prepared, definitely. Alright, let's see what else we have. Does it have a chance of actually hitting Iceland? Also, I'm a huge fan. Well, thank you very much for being a huge fan. But the storm threatening Iceland, well, it will be post-tropical quite clearly by the time it reaches Iceland. If it reaches Iceland. And as we saw on the model spread earlier on, it's still unknown whether this storm will track all the way northwest towards Greenland, or whether it will affect Iceland, or whether it will affect the United Kingdom and Ireland, or whether it will affect France even. Could still be on the table. In all eventualities, it will not be tropical by that point. If it does go further southeast towards Western Europe, it will be weaker. If it goes further north, it will be stronger. So if it did hit Iceland or Greenland, it could actually pack hurricane force winds. So that is one interesting point about the differences there. A lot more things coming in just now. I mean, we are here to take all kinds of questions whilst we're on the air, otherwise we're hardly a service. And I think questions about how strong will it be when it, assuming it's a when it does hit Ireland. If it was to go full on and make a landfall there as a post-tropical storm, I would say maybe winds of about 60-65 miles per hour by that point. Hurricane force gusts. Also worth noting, it will be post-tropical. The wind field will be massive and far displaced from the centre of the cyclone.
I'm just wondering how close is Lorenzo going to go to the Azores?
Very close. Depends which of the islands, though. The western islands I would be very concerned about. Potentially Category 2 or even Category 3 winds.
Yeah, I'm just looking at one weather site, and I don't know whether there's a high just off the Lisbon coast, whether that's going to impact the hurricane.
That's the first I've heard about that. Let me just have a look at the charts again here. There is a high pressure situated off the coast there. That is what's keeping it further west. That's why we rarely ever see storms going further east towards Spain, because there is high pressure dominant quite often in that particular region of the Atlantic. It's shoved up towards the northeast, and I'm not exactly seeing why the models have shifted back towards the storm moving north then west. I think it's just because there's nothing pushing it further east anymore like there was in previous model runs. from what I can see. This kind of movement is a common type of movement in post-tropical cyclones in those latitudes that can do a big loop round in that direction.
Just going to bring up the screen share.
Please, go ahead.
I just want you to have a look at this.
Alright, so I'm on the screen now as well. Nice of you to drop by. And underneath me is David's visualization showing that high pressure system there.
Yeah, it looks like it's 1,000. What's it? 1,030. I'm looking at the direction of the winds, and Lorenzo would be off the screen.
Well off the screen, yeah.
Yeah. Well, how close is it to the Azores?
What, right now?
Yeah, what's the...
Very far still.
What, a couple of days?
Yes, a couple of days.
Right, so you've got the high...
Let me just get it for you. It's 1,152 miles away at this point. It's quite far. But it will eventually speed up, as all storms do as they start that post-tropical transition.
That high's still there, but it looks like it...
Yeah, we're going through the forecast here, are we?
Yeah, so it's just a random site that I've looked for and just trying to get local information. So
and if
that
you keep going a bit
there.
more there, I think. Oh no, I thought I just saw the edge of the hurricane. Where are we up to now? September 30th. So we've got to go a bit further than that.
Hello, guys. I'm just
that is
popping
the
in.
sound of Riley.
Oh, there it is.
Yes.
That's not it. That's not it, David.
That's not it. No, sorry. I apologise.
That's only about 20 miles wide.
Oh, by the way, how wide is Lorenzo?
Quite wide. I think that is starting to appear on the left-hand side of the screen there. You just won't get it in the scope
Just
of that
there.
loop.
All right. No, actually.
David pointing out a 20-mile wide little post.
Yeah, all
That's
right.
great. That's great. We're also joined by Riley at this point, and you expressed strong opinions last night about the National Hurricane Center's upgrade.
Well, yeah, and some others felt the same way too. And based on what the aircraft data found, it, if anything, supports our point more based on what we thought that they pulled the trigger on the Category 5 a little bit too soon, and that 155, in my opinion and in others, would have been a more proper estimate for the storm.
Yeah, and that's aircraft Reconnaissance before and after the storm's peak. Very interesting to see. Do we have a final number on what they actually just recorded in their recent flight?
Well, let me check to see if there's anything updated from the last time I did. But the last time I did, they was only recording like 100 knot flight level wind, which supports like probably not even a major hurricane.
Not even a Category 3. That is remarkable if true.
And I'm looking at the data right now, and the highest flight level wind I see is not any higher than previous, and their surface wind's no higher, probably 80 knots. So it's probably not even a major hurricane, if you ask me.
And SATI readings not so long ago, we're going with a 104, ADT currently at 115. This is I mean, you assume it was a Category 5 last night, and then you just see it weaken 45 miles per hour maybe. More than that, 50 miles per hour in about 16 hours.
12 hours.
In about 16 hours.
18 hours.
And if you go with our number of 155, that's still 45 miles an hour weakening in 16 hours. That is quite remarkable.
Yeah, so if anything, maybe even 155 would be too high. I mean, I know the
Could you
Dvorak
imagine
hit
if that... National Hurricane Center surely got some questions to answer here when they go through their post-analysis. It's not making very much sense.
Agreed. It's not.
Very interesting, very interesting. This is another real curious case that has the top professionals tearing their hair out all the time, and we've had so many of these storms this year. We've had a Category 3 with an exposed center of circulation. We've had a 185 mile an hour storm with satellite estimates of 165. We have had the ugliest looking Gulf of Mexico hurricane since 1998. This year appears to have had it all, and we've still not reached the Caribbean peak season just yet, which is next month. Goodness knows what might happen there.
But yet again, the officials are the officials, and we'll just let them do whatever they see is right.
Yeah, but some people try to shut down debate when they say things like that. We really should have the right to question the official positions when there may have been some kind of problem. But I don't know. I certainly don't advocate being rude or anything against the agencies, because they are doing a very good job in general. I have seen some of that going on, particularly when they failed to upgrade Dorian to Category 5 at first. I think it was quite a disgrace, actually, the response that the National Hurricane Center was getting when that happened. So I certainly don't advocate that kind of behavior, but in the scientific field, it doesn't make very much sense at all. Quite a few things that have happened this year, and that's what we're going to have debates on in future. Either the observations are wrong, or the scientific theories are wrong, and things will have to change either way.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree. We can question the officials all they want on some decisions they make. But
alright, let's see if we've got some more stuff, more questions that have come in here. Let's see. I don't think that was anything that was really aimed towards us there. I'm just looking through here. I don't even know where I'm up to anymore. So in the meantime, whilst I try and find where we were, I don't know if anyone else has any comment. Maybe Mitag, perhaps. Riley, you've been following that one closely, haven't you?
Yeah, Typhoon Mitag in the Western Pacific. Right now it's in not really as favorable of an environment that it was supposed to be in, and last night there was a period when it looked like that it was about to undergo rapid intensification because it had convection wrapping on the north side and an eye was forming, but then it underwent a dry air entrainment, and since the inner core has essentially collapsed, and it's been trying to get it back together, but it definitely is not what it was expected to be by the models.
Alright, we have some questions. How likely is it for Lorenzo to actually hit Ireland? I don't think I could give you a number on that, but what we can tell you at the moment is that there is about 30 to 35% chance of tropical storm force winds on the western coast of Ireland next week. Bearing in mind it'll be post-tropical by then, so the wind field will be much larger. And are there other systems approaching the northern hemisphere? That's a very interesting way of putting it. But I don't think there's any other systems really on the radar for forming anytime soon.
Nathan, can you bring up my... Sorry, can you bring up my screen share?
You're showing us some models. Alright, models, here we are. HWRF.
Yeah.
So there it is. That's the HWRF model, one of many different computer models that are used to look at the forecast of these storms. The HWRF usually has a bit of a high bias, but it's not done so badly this year, really, certainly in the Atlantic, except one or two things that they may have done. But there it is, skirting past the westernmost islands of the Azores. Still a significant hurricane. You're starting to see the extratropical transition there. It continues. It's probably just completing there. Yep, complete there, and losing a lot of energy, even though it's got a very low pressure there, and sweeping right round into Greenland. Hurricane force winds for southern Greenland there. and what's left of it is continuing to circle around, and that's the end of the run. So that's the latest from the HWRF. A lot of models are pretty much saying that sort of thing. GFS as well we're looking at now. Alright, here we go. Beginning, David, at the beginning. This might take a while. Alright, there it is. Alright.
Sorry, viewer.
Yeah, you better be. Moving northeast, eventually. Staying fairly strong. Just slow down here. Go back again, go back a bit. I'm just trying to see if we could spot the Azores on those graphics before. Stop there. There they are. That's the western island of Flores there. Advance one frame. I'm just trying to spot the island. I'm struggling there with that graphic.
You may need to scroll down.
And one more.
Oh.
Can you just point to us where the island is? Because I can't see it on this graphic. Is it there?
Yes.
Are you sure? It's probably moving pretty fast. But I think hurricane conditions for those western islands. It's cleared the Azores by that point. And then it's lost them, the centre of the storm there. And there it is, swiping into Greenland. It happens really quickly. So at the moment it really is sort of like a coin toss on whether it is going to really give tropical storm equivalent winds to parts of Western Europe or not, whether it might even be Iceland or whether it is in fact going to be in Greenland. You're also showing us something else there, Western Pacific.
The Westpac, yep, the Western Pacific, and there's the wind shear. I haven't looked at what the various agencies are saying. Pegasus is yet to update.
They've got Signal 1 warnings out.
So JMA. They have it, what is it, 975. And they have it dropping 965, 955, 975. So they have it.
So that sounds like a stronger storm than what the JTWC is saying.
Yes, I haven't even looked at their. Alright, let's see what they're saying.
They're saying, I think, only a Category 1 peak. Am I right? There's the JTWC forecast. For those who are confused, there are two agencies that are well known in this part of the world. There's actually a lot more than just the two agencies that track tropical cyclones in the Western Pacific. You've got Japan, JTWC, the US Navy that is, Korea, China, Hong Kong, the Philippines, all tracking the storms. The most well known are the JMA from Japan and the JTWC. And that is the JTWC forecast, calling maybe for a brief landfall in China. And Category 1 all the way, I think, they said. And I think that's mainly out of uncertainty due to land interaction more than anything.
Yes, what did they say?
But that is an interesting one there with Mitag, and something that we should be preparing for in Taiwan, which could get typhoon force winds and heavy rainfall. Let me just find out real quick how much rain is expected over there, because that is something I've not actually looked into just yet. I imagine it could be quite a rainmaker. So looking towards Taiwan, yeah, we're looking at a lot of rainfall in the area, particularly along the northern tip, well in excess of 300 millimeters of rain.
Nathan, the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre is saying slight intensification through the next 36 hours. Land interaction, as you highlighted, Over coastal China, cool sea surface temperatures, high vertical wind shear should gradually weaken the system. There is high uncertainty in the near-term intensity forecast because of the proximity of the track to China and Taiwan.
Yes.
And despite the two slight
Basically what we
eastern
said.
outliners, that gem and the JGSM, spreading the track guidance is only 130 nautical miles at the 72-hour mark, lending good confidence in the portion of the centre's track. And then they're saying after 72 hours, it'll gradually track more westward.
A little bit. Stick with us, because the National Hurricane Center will be updating very shortly on all of the tropical cyclones in their area. That's Lorenzo and Narda. We expect that Narda may have weakened now to a tropical depression, and who knows what they're going to say for Lorenzo. So that's going to be rather interesting to see. We're sticking with 115 miles per hour at the moment, but Recon not even supporting that in their latest pass. And what we say is that direct measurements are better than the satellite estimates. So who knows how strong Lorenzo is, and even more, who on earth knows how strong Lorenzo used to be? That is going to be a debate that will last a very long time. So we'll bring that news to you as soon as it comes in. In the meantime, we've got some questions. Do we think Lorenzo is starting the becoming extratropical process? No, it's too soon for that. Give it another day at least. People thanking us for being such a great streaming service. Well, that is very nice of you, and we do our best all the time, and we are doing so right here at this point. We felt it was necessary to provide an update on these storms.
And sorry to do it, Nathan. Special welcome to those on Facebook viewing from the Azores. My thoughts with the people down over there in that region, and actually got a couple from Azores, Nathan on Facebook, and Jomar. Good to see you here again. What's the greatest number of storms ever recorded in October?
Oh, goodness.
Now, we don't know which basin.
I assume the Atlantic. That's a question and a half.
Well,
I couldn't tell you at all.
good
I
question,
don't really look at monthly summaries. I know I'm the historian and all that of the project, but I'm at a blank on that one. Just that there are a few seasons in history that started late and kept going till the early part of November. That is something I might have to get back to you in written form in the future as soon as I can have a look at that. It's not really data that I tend to look at very much. Yep, the updates are due at any time.
So, Rolando, good to see you from over there, and keep the questions coming in. I'm actually simulcasting off the YouTube channel, so I hate to say it, but if there's any technical issue with the stream, you switch over to the YouTube channel. But special welcome to those that are viewing, and we will continue to bring the latest information, even via video updates.
Excellent. Do we think Mitag could rapidly intensify? Riley, you thought that might have happened earlier. What do you think now?
Well, earlier I was thinking it would be a possibility, and some models hinted at it, and if the environment would have set up the way that it was expected to with the ULAC and with high moisture and all that, it probably would have, but that it didn't materialize. So based on that now, I would say probably not. And if any strengthening at all occurs, I pretty much would agree with what the JTWC says, that it only strengthens like 5 or 10 knots because the conditions are just not favorable for rapid intensification.
Now, I'm just seeing in the comments, is it true that Recon in the latest run only got 95 knots flight level winds in Lorenzo?
They got a little bit over that, but the latest pass I think did get near 95 knots, maybe 96, but it definitely was not above 100.
Blimey. That is shocking. We're usually shocked when storms strengthen rapidly, but this one either has weakened rapidly or has been grossly overestimated. by everyone, including us, because it can't be less than 155, surely. Are we really saying this could be less than 155 based on these observations now and before its peak?
I don't know.
Throws the debate wide open once again. That's amazing. Alright, just trying to catch up on a few more questions here. Please tag Force13 all in text. We've already discussed the Category 5 peak, supposedly. Our official position is against that, and we did cite the reasons earlier on. We might recap that again a little bit later. Do we like our jobs? That was a question there. It's been a stressful year for that, I can tell you that much. National Hurricane Center folks probably not liking their jobs so much this year because they've had a terrible situation with storms. Why will Lorenzo be weaker if it moves further east towards the UK than if it moves further north and west? I'm not really sure, to be honest, but I assume that it's because it's moving more quickly as it's moving further north, and possibly something to do with baroclinicity. If it moves further east, it's just sort of trundling towards the coast of the United Kingdom and towards France. And that's also interesting that the stronger storms tend to be further out at sea as well, in the North Atlantic too. The strongest ones in the records in the extratropical zone were like that indeed. Still, it will still possibly be gusting to hurricane force. Another question there: if the remnants of Lorenzo hit the UK, will I film it? I really don't think there'll be very much to see, in all honesty, if it does come to Force 13 HQ. I don't think it's going to be that impressive. But if we do see anything, we'll air it. Definitely.
Nathan, I'd just like to say to our audience over in the Azores on Facebook, any local information, you can post it in the comments section on the Facebook, and we'll monitor what information comes in. But and then we've got that marine incident where the recon, I think, were diverted to help in search and rescue. I was talking to
just in case people haven't heard about that, the boat did, I don't know if it capsized or if it just sunk underneath Hurricane Lorenzo when it was very strong during yesterday, wasn't it? And I think the news out of that was that 3 people were rescued out of, 11 missing. Is that right?
Missing,
something
3,
like that.
And I did mention to Nathan, I cited a reference to possibly 62-foot waves.
Oh.
And
waves are very high out on the high seas.
Horrendous. That is horrendous.
What are the... Okay, we got some questions coming into here now. Will it most likely hit Dumfries and Galloway near Annan? That is in the southwestern part of Scotland. You just see on the left-hand side of your screen there, only about a 10% chance of tropical storm force winds, or storm force winds, gale force winds in that region. Rainfall amounts in that area will be probably about 1 to 2 inches. And also, what are the expected effects in London? Now, you will notice that London doesn't feature on the bottom of our panel. That's because it's too far out of our expected effects zone. So no chance of strong winds there at the moment, but potentially maybe up to 1 inch of rain next week, this week coming.
Nathan.
And the chances for typhoon conditions in Taiwan, very high. The center of Typhoon Mitag is likely to pass very close to the northern tip of Taiwan. I do appreciate there's a lot of different questions coming from all angles. There are 3 different storms on the table. We will try and give equal airing to all of them. David?
I was just going to mention about that massive high off the Lisbon coast. I think that would have to break down. Well, let's say weaken considerably.
No, I don't think so. The storm will just slide past it, and the high will slip in behind it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking you've got your flood warnings over there in the UK for various parts. But what I'm thinking, and it's only I'm putting it out there for a bit of discussion or just answer. If that high was to weaken, would that increase the chances of the system towards the UK? Even the models are indicating a northwest, then west of the curve.
That's quite possible indeed. If it does move towards the British Isles, then it's going to be quite an interesting situation, and not in a good way. There are currently 176 flood alerts in England, 68 flood warnings at that as well. Just looking elsewhere, in Wales there are 24 flood alerts, 13 flood warnings. In Scotland there are 2 flood alerts, no flood warnings just yet. And in Ireland, I'm just looking towards that right now. I'm not sure if Ireland issues flood warnings per se, but there are rainfall warnings in effect for large parts of southern Ireland at this point. But don't forget, this storm is still a good 4 or 5 days away, as you can see on that graphic there, if you're interested in the UK and Ireland. Still 4 or 5 days away. It's going to be Thursday or Friday when the storm reaches those areas. In the meantime, it will strike the Azores on Tuesday night into the early hours of Wednesday morning. Could still be a Category 2 or 3 hurricane by the time it moves through there. I was convinced it was going to be very strong when it moved through there, but looking at Lorenzo in recent frames and how Recon are barely not even getting Category 3 wins, I mean, I'm still trying to get over that personally, but I think there is still the possibility that this storm could deepen a little bit more yet. A third peak, perhaps.
Yeah, on satellite it seems as though that might be trying to improve again.
You think so? We're looking at that satellite on the screen all the time on the right-hand side.
Yeah, at least the core area, it looks like convection might be increasing on the western side, at least from imagery I've seen. Not sure if it's outdated, if any.
Can I ask a question whether we're going to see any more recon flights?
I honestly don't know. I don't follow the Recon that closely, apart from the results that they get.
I believe the National Hurricane Center, in their forecast discussions, they tend to say if they're going to do further recon missions or whatnot. I'm not sure.
So nothing showing up, or we haven't searched for that information? No, it's just something I was thinking about. And what is the cutoff point for the recon flights up there in the Atlantic?
I got to interrupt. The update is out on Lorenzo. They're going with 115 miles per hour and a pressure of 948 millibars, which is very close to what we're saying for the storm right now. They expect the storm to gradually weaken and affect the Azores now as a Category 1.
A Cat 1,
That is probably a bit of a sigh of relief for the Azores, because until now we were probably forecasting the strongest landfall or strongest pass to the Azores that we've ever seen. Now it is a little bit more in the normal threshold. Still, we could see hurricane conditions on the westernmost islands, but if that's true and it only strikes with winds of about 80 miles an hour, which is what they're saying, that's a lot more manageable for those islands. At least they've experienced that kind of thing before. The forecast cone is starting to take into account that westward turn as it moves well off to the north later on in the forecast. Sooner or later that will appear on our screen. We'll be able to show it to you. Let's just see if we've got it now, just cycling through this taking command. There it is, top left hand side. You can see that's the latest forecast cone from the National Hurricane Center on Lorenzo. And by day 5, Friday, it is moving northwest of Ireland. Let's see if we can get some information from the National Hurricane Center's discussion. The cloud pattern has continued to degrade throughout the day, with cold cloud tops filling in the eye with a gradual erosion of the convection over the southwest quadrant. A recent AMSR2 pass confirms that the eye wall is indeed open on the western side and suggests there may be another eye wall replacement cycle occurring. That's great news for the Azores, by the way, I think. Although it will increase the size of this storm. Certainly means it probably will not strike as a category 2 or 3 anymore. The NOAA hurricane hunters are currently performing multiple experimental flights inside and around Lorenzo and are providing NHC with valuable data. I don't know if by experimental they mean they're doing it, the experimental part refers to that they're doing it so far east when they haven't before, or whether they're actually doing something different in their methods. I assume it's the first. The wind data from the SFMR indicating that the hurricane force winds extend outward farther than previously thought, about 60 to 70 nautical miles from the centre in all quadrants. The aircraft also reported an adjusted minimal central pressure of 948 millibars, a peak flight level wind of 99 knots. That's flight level peak wind of 99 knots. That is pathetic, Riley.
Not even 100 knots.
And an image capture from an onboard radar that confirmed the break in the eye wall. The available objective and subjective intensity estimates range from 102 to 114 knots. Based on a compromise of these data, the initial intensity has been set at 100 knots, but this may be a little generous given much lower drops on wind speeds measured by the aircraft. Interesting that they acknowledge that. So that's where we're at with the latest from the National Hurricane Center regarding Lorenzo. Looking at Narda, the update is still not out on that one yet. I'm surprised they've left it so late. They should be putting out an update at any time on Tropical Storm Narda. Whether it's still a tropical storm as it moves into Mexico now or not remains to be seen. My guess will be that it won't be as soon as we get that information. This is Force 13 Live. Let's see if we've got any more questions. Has Mitag weakened? No, it's maintaining, I think. And I'm really far behind on the comments and questions, so we're trying to catch up here. Could Lorenzo do one last strengthening process? Well, I think we alluded to that earlier. Yes, it definitely could. At least one more in the next 24-48 hours. Especially late tomorrow, I think, or early Tuesday. Because wind shear will be lower then.
For Lorenzo, if it's not looking healthy, wind shear's up around 40-50 knots to the northeast of the system, so wind shear's really not going to be an issue for Lorenzo until it gets over towards Greenland, the northwest, up around 25 to 30 knots. I've actually got the wind shear on the screen, Nathan.
Let's just get to that. Yes.
So you got the
wind shear on the increase pretty soon by the looks of things.
You got 25 to 40 to the east. Then you go in the northwest, you're up around.
We do advise caution over that imagery, though.
40, yeah.
We're not sure how accurate that actually is from our own experience. Is there an invest in the Atlantic? No, only Lorenzo. Is it true that National Hurricane Center want Lorenzo to still be tropical by island? Absolutely not. You can see on the left-hand panel there, the last two dots have a white background, and that means it is post-tropical by that point. It's not going to go anywhere near the British Isles as a tropical cyclone. Let's see. Alright, more questions about the Category 5 stuff and whether Lorenzo will get retired. Well, it shouldn't get retired, but we said that about Joaquin, which sunk a ship and it got retired, so this one probably will as well.
Meanwhile, there's Gordon in what year was it? 1994 that killed how many people that wasn't retired?
1,400.
Yeah.
Mainly in Haiti. Interestingly, you'll also notice the bottom left-hand panel there, the chances of tropical storm force winds from National Hurricane Center has gone down quite considerably, actually, for the UK and Ireland, to the point where England and Wales aren't under any chances of tropical storm force winds anymore, so that's really interesting. Meanwhile, the Azores still with a very high chance of those conditions and a high chance of hurricane conditions, especially the Western Islands. So I don't really feel, since the storm has weakened, if the storm was still a Category 4, we'd probably have stayed on the air, but we're going to finish up in a few moments. But final thoughts from the team, final discussion here about the Category 5 status that we don't think was. Riley, where do you think we're at with this?
Well, I think that we're overall where we were at last night, but if anything, the recon data, as we've hit on earlier in the live stream, would help our point. And another thing that would help our point that I heard you mention earlier, Nathan, is that they said the wind field was larger, so that would be another thing that would point, because I don't think it's underwent another eye wall replacement cycle between now and then, has it?
Between...
Or unless it has, then I'm wrong, but I think it's weakening due to other factors.
Since last night?
Yes.
I think it did. Okay,
well then never mind. That would explain why. But either way, as we've hit on earlier, the recon, and not only that, you also have the argument that you have to maintain a structure for a certain amount of time, that, and we hit on last night that it did not do that neither. So that's another case that is against it.
Let's just reiterate as we finish up here exactly why Force 13 did not go with Category 5 status once again for Hurricane Lorenzo. To put it into chronological order, earlier on, as we were talking earlier today, earlier in our stream, yesterday afternoon, Recon flew into the storm. They found winds of 130 miles per hour winds. Our SATID system, which measures the satellite intensity of the storm, went with 142. Some people don't like that method for some reason. Okay then, ADT, the Advanced Dvorak technique, which is a lot more well-renowned, went with 140 at that point. That's 10 miles per hour higher than the Recon estimate. Today, Recon have gone into the storm and have found winds of probably 110 miles per hour. And the same ADT is still saying 115 miles per hour. That's 5 miles per hour higher than the estimate. The National Hurricane Center went with Category 5. That satellite bias was probably still there when they went with Category 5. And even an extra bias was added on top because they issued some kind of corrective measure onto the Dvorak scale, which put the storm up another point. Because something to do with the eye structure, which I've never seen before, Riley. I don't know about you. It just sounds like hogwash to me.
Yeah, I have to agree. And another thing, as you said, Nathan, those Dvorak fixes, they were special fixes. Like, what is that? It's like, is that something like, is the rule bent here or something to fix before? That puzzles me too. Like, what is that?
Now, we're not going to call the NHC bent here. Let's not go that far, but we think they've made an error with the Category 5 status, and we certainly don't condone anyone who is overtly rude towards the authorities or anything like that. but we do question the science involved in getting to that Category 5 status. We don't think it was. SATID maximums were 158, which was sustained for just 10 minutes. And, you know, I don't see how that could have been a Category 5, because if it was, you would have to upgrade a whole raft of other storms from the past. And alright, if the National Hurricane Center say, hey, this is the new rule, this is how it actually should have been all along, okay then, we'll make Lorenzo a Category 5, but I can't see the National Hurricane Center going back and upgrading all of those other storms in the past to reflect that same rule. It would be a joke.
Agreed.
And on that note, that's the end of our hour of coverage tonight. That's the main part about Lorenzo in any case. The threat to the Azores is still very much there, even though the storm is likely to be a little bit weaker when it gets there. We're still looking at hurricane-force winds widespread over the Azores. We've also been looking at Typhoon Mitag, which could deliver typhoon winds to Taiwan over the course of today, local time. And that is something we're watching very closely as well. We'll have updates on all of these storms on the Tropical Weather Bulletin, which is coming up in 3 hours from now. In the meantime, that's it from us at Force 13 HQ. Let me just quickly check whether we got that update on Narda in the end. Yes, they have weakened it to a tropical depression, as expected. All warnings have been lifted. But still keep watching further northwest if you're along the coast of Mexico. It could re-strengthen to a tropical storm in the Gulf of California. In the meantime, that's us signing off for now. Thanks for watching and engaging. It's been a very interesting evening of conversation once again. And I'm sure you'll hear a lot more from us on that Lorenzo debate, whichever side of the fence you're on. Thanks for joining us, team. Very good work again tonight. Good night. We'll see you again soon.
Good night.
All right, good night. Thank you.